welcome back to KXAN Live. I'm Esmeralda Zamora, and we have our Nick's First Warning weather segment with meteorologist Nick Bannin. Nick, how are you doing?
Hey, doing well, thanks. How you doing, Esme?
I'm doing great. Excited to talk about this topic. Only comes every several times a year, right? So
Yeah.
I think it's two, right?
Two switches of time per year, the beginning of daylight saving time and then the end of daylight saving time. And what this means is that this week actually has the darkest mornings of the whole year, which actually does bring some dangers with it that we'll talk about here in a second. But I want to walk you through the sunset times that we're seeing here this week. Today, the sunrise times. Today, the sun rose at 7:43. On Wednesday and Thursday mornings, it rises at 7:44. Doesn't rise until 7:45 on Friday. And Saturday has the latest sunrise of the whole year at 7:46 in the morning. That means if your alarm goes off anytime this week, you probably have already noticed it over the last few weeks, to be honest, but this week especially, your alarm goes off and you're like, is the alarm wrong? It's still dark outside. But yes, this is the darkest week here of the whole year. This can cause some concerns if you're driving to drop off the kids at school or you're driving to work early in the morning when it is darker than you're used to. So don't forget to turn on your car's lights. Watch out for children who may be walking to school. Give yourself some extra time that you need to get where you need to go. And if your child is walking to school, riding a bike to school, or you're walking with them to school, don't forget to wear bright colored clothes that are more likely to pick up on the lights from cars and not wear dark clothing on the way to school here in the mornings. And if your child is biking to school, make sure they have lights on those bikes and reflectors on those bikes as well. Just want to take you through what's going to happen to the sun rises here as we go into the future. So standard time begins on Sunday. The sun rises then noticeably earlier, about 59 minutes earlier on Sunday at 6:47. But then the sunrises continue to get later still. 7 a.m. sunrises on November 19th. And by January 4th, the latest sunrise of standard time is 7:28. So our mornings will get darker again, but just not quite as dark as they are this week. Now, to put that in perspective, that latest sunrise of standard time is still about 18 minutes, 20 minutes or so earlier than the sun rises that we're having here this week. And then the sun rises back before 7 a.m. on February 26th, Esme.
Wow, so we can expect some darker mornings, darker than usual, and this means that we are falling back, right?
Yes, this weekend marks the, actually, technically it's the longest weekend of the whole year. Can you think about that? You get an extra hour of sleep.
That's exciting.
It means the weekend is a full hour longer than normal, which is kind of a weird way to think about it, but it's true. So yeah, sunrise on Saturday is at 7:46 and the sunset Saturday is 6:42. And then when we turn those clocks back, of course, many clocks do it automatically. The sun rises on Sunday at 6:47, but it sets super early. Look at that, 5:41 sunset on Sunday. So things are going to start getting darker much earlier. And as we dig into the sunset times, we mentioned that 5:41 sunset on Sunday. The earliest sunset of the whole year begins November 24th, where the sun sets as early as 5:30 in the evening.
Wow.
And we do that for a little under 2 weeks before the sun sets start getting a little later again. The next time we have a 6 p.m. sunset, not until January 23rd, and our next 7 p.m. sunset or later comes the first day of daylight saving time, which is March 9th of next year. That's just after we lose an hour of sleep during that particular time, but it does mean that our evenings are lighter again, and it also makes our mornings a bit darker. I do want to talk about how this all affects the hours of daylight. Of course, this weekend, it's just a daylight shift. It doesn't affect the amount of daylight other than the fact that we're losing a little under 2 minutes of daylight per day. So today, roughly 11 minutes of daylight, and by the time we get to the shortest day of the year, which falls on the beginning of winter, December 21st, shortest day, 10 hours, 11 minutes of daylight. But that does mean that as we get into the second day of winter, our days will start to slowly get longer again, and our nights will start to slowly get shorter until the very beginning of summer.
Wow. Well, don't be like me. I rely on my oven clock to tell me the time in the morning.
Yeah.
And that one does not change on its own.
Yes. Car clock you'll have to adjust to. A lot of those don't necessarily adjust on their own. Of course, your phone will adjust. Some other alarm clocks will adjust for the daylight saving time and then heading into standard time on their own. But go around the house, make sure all those clocks are set before you go to bed Saturday night. Of course, many people will forget to do that, and then they'll be changing their clocks a few weeks or months from now, depending on how lazy they are.
And as you mentioned, in the mornings, it is a little bit unsafe when it is darker and there's children either walking to school or biking, like you mentioned. So it's also important to remember school zone safety, drive slow, get off your phone, especially right now when we're going to see the difference in the daylight outside.
Yeah, I mean, this week, but also always watch out for children, right? But this week, it's going to be particularly hard to see them because of just how dark the mornings will be. And then the opposite problem happens once we do fall back here this weekend. Our evenings will be much darker. So people that may be out and about in an early evening will be out and about in the dark instead of in the light. So in the evenings, then you'll want to watch out for some people out and about. And of course, if those people are you definitely want to make sure you wear bright colored clothing and walk around with a flashlight, that sort of thing.
Yes, well, you have an article on our website, KXAN.com. It's a blog post that you created. Tell us a little bit about what we can find on this post.
Yes, you can find more information about those sunrise and sunset times and the shifting of daylight and night and those times here that we expect to see, as we always do, beginning this weekend and beyond. Also, fun fact, and Esme, I learned this during my first job in TV news. Everyone says daylight savings, right? We all add the S at the end. Well, it turns out my first boss that I've ever had in TV news was like, you know, there's no S at the end of daylight saving. And I was like, what are you talking about? It's like, it's daylight saving. You're not savings time, you're saving time. And now I can't forgive myself for dropping the S and leaving it as daylight saving time. But you can educate your family and friends at the dinner table about that.
Yeah, and when you corrected me on it, I was like, wow, that makes a lot more sense.
I know, right? But it's something we'll all fall back into unless we really think about it, because so many people say daylight savings. It's just not technically true, even though it's become the common vernacular.
Well, before we wrap up, I wanted to ask you, what is your favorite, falling back or falling forward on the time?
Falling back or springing forward. Well, falling back, of course, you get the extra hour of sleep, which is beneficial unless you've got kids, because they don't really know that they can sleep in longer and they're just waking up at their normal time. But so, yeah, I mean, this weekend is great for that. But it is really nice when we spring forward there in March, when you get that extra light in the evening. It is a sign that we're clawing our way out of winter into the warmer months. But we've had so much heat lately, it's kind of nice to think fall and cooler thoughts, right?
Yeah, this is just that one touch of fall we get here in Central Texas.
Yeah, right.
Well, thank you for joining us, Nick.
Thanks for having me.
And that's all we have for you all today on Nick's First Warning. Remember, this is a segment that happens every Tuesday at around 3 p.m., and we will see you here next week. Thank you.